riding down Highway 61. Sides of the roads all lined with fields, nothing but sunset in the windshield. Feel it as soon as I ride into town. This is where I go to slow down. Miles and miles of soybeans and corn. I'm in the place where the blues was born. About a mile from the big muddy river, place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my worries drift away from being out in the sun all day. No matter where in the world I go, I'll always find home on the banks of that oxbow.
What's up, guys? Brad Chappell back with you at the Grizzly Jig Show. It's a madhouse out there right now. A lot of people in here shopping. Fun event, exciting stuff going on here. But also, I've got two of my buddies here, and I'm going to let them do a little introduction, and I'll show you what we're going to talk about afterwards. Kind of surprise you.
I get to go first?
Yeah.
All right. That's an honor with Tim over there.
Absolutely.
Hey, I'm Brad Whitehead. I guide in northwest Alabama, Pickwick Lake, Wilson Lake, and we've got some small watershed lakes. I've been in this for about 23 years. Pretty cool deal. Just a little insight. Tim Horton, one of the bass guys, got me in this for a stand, bringing outdoor riders. Hey, I need a guy that does a little something besides bass. And he opened the door. I always try to give him credit. And he's kind of rolled from that. Do a lot of PR, a lot of outdoor rider stuff. But the guiding part's fun. I do crappie from February to the end of, right at the end of April. Then get cranked back up in May for brim. And then get after those brown fish about September through Thanksgiving.
You talk about brown fish, what are you actually talking about?
I'm a little smallmouth.
I need to experience that one
Yes,
day.
you do. This would be good. We could do a podcast on that.
Absolutely.
It's an awesome time. Awesome time.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
I've been with him a few times.
But yeah, it's I've enjoyed the last couple of years doing the multi-species. Kind of breaks it up, gives you something fresh. So Jack just told me to be careful and don't talk too much about smallmouth.
Right. I got you. I understand. Hey, Tim?
Tim Howell,
They know who you are probably.
Long Branch Guide Service, the Big Four, or now the Big Three, I guess.
Yeah, big three.
Well, Grenada, Enid, and Sardis. I usually start up about middle of February and run through the end of November. So we're fixing to get ready to kick things back off and get it going.
I was thinking this morning time about this time frame for me. It's kind of kicks off my really busy time of the year as far as guiding goes. Right after Grizzly Jig Show, it's full force crappie fishing pretty much for me 5 days a week. I try not to do 7 just because you guys know how hard that is.
It's taxing.
Man, it's very taxing and stressful and everything else along the lines, but it'll be 5 days a week, probably 6 days a week, all the way through June for sure. But this is the beginning of it for us, and it's game on. And
right.
I've got both of these guys in here, and they've been doing it a long time. I've been doing it quite a few years as well, but I want to focus on some of the mistakes it comes to trolling. And there's a couple different techniques that we're going to talk about. It's just not going to be spider rigging or long line, and it's going to be all those different techniques that people that are doing it. Everybody's still, not everybody, but a lot of guys are still trolling out on these lakes, and for good reasons.
Oh, yeah.
And we want to help those guys that are doing it to even be a little bit better. And so I want to think about some of the mistakes that kind of pops in your head automatically when you see people trolling. And I know I've done it through the years. We always fish around different people, of course. And I come by them and I'm thinking, man, if this guy would do this, if he would just do one little thing different, he'd be catching fish right now. But you don't want to go up and tell somebody, hey, man, you're doing that wrong. No. And I'm not that kind of person. Now, if somebody asks me, I'll be glad to help them.
Right.
But this is going to give us a chance to look back and think back of some of those guys that we see on the water and help them out without being obnoxious either about it. But something comes to your mind, Brad. What would it be that some of the mistakes that you see guys when they're out there trolling?
Well, I think, and we kind of briefly talked about it before we started this, I think a lot of people look out there, this time of year we get a lot of rain, and in northwest Alabama, they're scared of the mud.
Yeah.
Where Tim lives, I mean, that's an everyday thing for him.
That's right.
He's into color. I fell victim to that. I never would fish in the mud after a rain. And I guess probably 5 or 6 years ago, I said, you know what? It's a beautiful day. I'm going to go fish. And I caught a lot of fish in the mud.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these older guys, and even some guys that are just now getting into it, it's too muddy.
Yeah.
So that kind of plays a big part in our part of the state that mud you can't catch fish in, but it's wrong. That mud heats up and fish go to the top, and for what especially you like to do, the long line, it is lethal.
Right.
So I guess that's my first tip. Don't let the weather deter you from going on a day of fishing.
Yeah.
Time on the water is better than anything that you can do.
But you can't get it back.
No.
That's right.
You're going to learn something.
Yeah, you will
right
learn
or wrong,
something.
you're either going to learn what to do or you're going to learn what not to do.
And that's the beauty of the sport of crappie fishing in general for me is there is nothing in my mind that is perfect. No technique out here is perfect for everybody. And it might be a great technique for one particular person that fits their style and their thought process or what have you, but there's so many different techniques that fit all of us. And I can guarantee you, everybody out here in Grizzly, Florida right now, there's several hundred folks out there, everybody out there has a really good technique that they're good at and they're wanting to learn and really focus on. Some guys have a couple of them, but everybody, you don't have to do the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I think and I think I speak for Tim, we're kind of old school guys.
Right.
It's hard, and it's probably harder for us than the new and up and comers to change our style.
Right.
So that is a mistake on us. Even as guides, and Tim can elaborate on it. We don't like to change.
Yeah.
And that's a bad problem for us older guys because, it works. Well, there's a time or two that, I'm sure, Tim, we've had some slow days and we go, boy, I wish we had that new technique we ought to be working on.
That's right.
So I'm sure he can elaborate on that a little more.
Yeah, and as bad as I hate to say it, you got to embrace it. You got to learn it, and with the new live scope technology, I guess it's not new now, but it's still kind of new to us. I use it every day trolling, spider rigging.
How are you using it trolling? If you've got a live scope and you're wanting to say, all right, we're going to, I've got the purchase of the live scope, forward facing sonar, whatever brand it might be, how can they utilize it trolling?
What it did for me initially, the biggest thing it did for me was before that technology, at the beginning of the day, we went to an area where, where we knew fish were and we started, but we didn't really know the depths they were all running. So I would stagger all my baits at different depths from the get-go, and then I would kind of dial it in as the day went, to figure out where they're at. And now I can drop that trolling motor in the water and scan around, look around a little bit, and boom, there they are, and I can set all the poles exactly where they need to be right from the get-go. And it cuts a couple hours out of your time.
Another thing, even with that same aspect as far as spider rigging with live scope, one of the things that it really taught me in the beginning with it was how fish are reacting to those baits as they come by them, as far as the speed goes.
That's right.
If you go by them really slow and they're just completely ignoring it, you might want to speed it up.
That's right.
Yep.
Speed it up a notch or two.
And the reverse.
Absolutely. If you go by them still and they're not reacting, bump it up, and vice versa.
That's right.
You'll find a sweet spot when it comes to trolling that those fish want those baits coming up above them. And even I've noticed, and it was probably the first year I had live scope, and we were really focused on using live scope spider rigging, but we were putting the baits too close to them.
Right.
And you think of even about that, you've got the fish sitting, let's say they're suspended 6 foot deep, and literally we were putting them about 5.5 foot deep. We wanted them close by them. Well, those fish were ignoring them. They would just, and you think, well, I know these fish are seeing these baits, and we tried the speed, but also we tried moving them up. And all of a sudden, I moved them 2 foot up above them, and that same bait coming over them 2 foot. And all, like I said, here they come. So there's ways to use live scope when it comes to trolling. Really, spider rigging to say, you can adjust your baits to what the fish want in a quicker fashion.
That's right. And it goes back to what we've talked about time and time again, paying attention to the small stuff, paying attention to the details. Catch a fish here, be thinking, well, why was that fish there? Why did I catch that fish? What caused him, or why was he liking that area I was in?
And I think also getting a mindset before you get in that boat of what you're going to do is a terrible mistake.
Exactly.
And you two can vouch for this. There's a lot of mornings I can put that boat in and I know, hey, it's on.
Right.
But there are a few mornings that you put that boat in and you've got that feeling and you look out there and you go, it's going to be tough.
That's right.
Just by the weather conditions, the
Right.
moon phase. But I think a lot of people the night before will go, well, I'm going long line and this is what I'm going to do. I'm only going to use a 16th. And that's a horrible mindset.
Absolutely.
It is.
Because if you have that mindset, and I've heard a lot of guys talk, well, if they don't hit that black chartreuse, they just ain't gonna hit.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's a horrible mindset.
is.
There's no way you can be a guide and do
Right.
that.
You can't live
So,
and die by one thing.
I think just not even thinking about it till you drop the trolling motor, you drop your live scope, and then you put your pattern together.
That's right.
I had a guy tell me one time, and it makes a lot of sense. You don't fish holes, you fish patterns.
Right.
That's right.
You got to find out that pattern. And as a guide, you hope to find that pattern within the first hour.
Right.
Sure.
But if you don't, you got to
better be
change your mindset.
That's right. And you better be adapting and looking. And been many days where I've gone out and and the day before I just absolutely killed them.
Yeah.
And just like Brad said, I got a game plan in my head in the morning. I'm going to do this with that, and get there, and it's completely different than it was yesterday. They're not there. They're not doing something different, and then then you get, like I say, you got to change your mind. You got to change your attitude, and you got to switch things up and figure out what's going on.
I think a lot of guys, we do have a big advantage by being on the water every day, because it kind of gives, every day when I start, I know I've got a starting reference point. But the same token, I know I can't live and die by what was yesterday. I can't totally fish on that memory. I've got a reference points to start, and that's even, you hear a buddy and they say, man, yeah, we whacked them yesterday or the day before over on Hernando Point, and 12 foot of water, they're sitting 6 foot deep. That's a starting point.
Sure.
But if you go over there and all of a sudden they're gone,
Then what?
then what? That's just always use a fishing report as a reference point to start. Don't go to that same area and think it's just going to be on, and if they're going to bite or they're not. Use it as a starting point to adjust from.
That's right.
And a lot of guys get caught up in that, and they're like, man, you called and told me that, you caught fish there. And I even recall years ago, and I was at actually Enid guiding up there in the month of June, and a buddy of mine calls me up, and he says, man, how you catching them? I told him the general area I was fishing, and I think I was probably pulling 2 1/16. I can probably tell you the color Junebug chartreuse was the color that year. And I told him, straight up. Well, he went out and fished, and later on that day, him and his wife, I bump into him down the road, and his wife was livid with me. She gets out, and literally she's like, you sent us on a wild goose chase this morning? And I'm like, hey, all I gave you was a starting point, a reference point. I don't know what you're going to do when you get there.
Yeah.
That's it.
But I think too many people live and die by a fishing report and saying, this is how I've got to go catch them. That's the only way. They're still going to be in that same pattern, their same days. And I don't know how many times, and I know you've seen it, I know Tim's seen it, but as the day even goes along, all of a sudden, what worked in the morning,
That's right.
it ain't working in the afternoon.
That's right. The sun could go down, the sun could come up, get cloudy. I mean, things change quickly.
Wind pick up.
Yeah.
Wind pick up.
Change directions.
And I know this is kind of silly to even bring this up, but it works the same way as like finding bait, in the spring. And I've kind of learned it, kind of patterned it with a crappie. I can I can fish. I do a lot of my trips in the afternoon for smallmouth, and I'll have a friend tell me at 7 o'clock, "Hey, the bait's right here." Well, I get there at 11, it's not there.
Yep.
Right.
You know, the wind's picked up, a boat's come through there, and I think fish obviously do the same thing.
Sure.
You know, if that bait's not going to sit there for 4 hours, them crappie sure ain't going to
That's
sit there
exactly
for 4
right.
hours. But, you know, I think that is a mistake. You know, having your mindset and going back to the same spot. It's more times than not, it's not going to work.
That's
You're going to
exactly
have
right.
to move. You know.
Kind of like touching on what Brad said earlier. I got 2 rules: never leave fish to go find fish,
Yeah.
and never fish somebody else's fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know another rule that needs to be added? Never give up.
That's exactly right.
And I've had so many trips that it takes a while to really get on them because different things change, like we were talking
most
about.
certainly.
And I recall a trip that I did last year, and it started out tough, remained tough, and I just kept changing things up and looking different, and finally it all clicked, and we had a great, and it was probably more of the third quarter of the trip to say, but at the end of it, he was like, "Brad, I noticed that you never panicked today," and I was like, "Well," and my mindset was, "We're going to figure them out."
That's right.
I was never going to give up.
That was feeding that fire.
Yeah, and that's what I really love even about crappie fishing is nothing's going to be perfect every day. You're going to have to look for them, and just don't give up.
Right. How many Hail Marys have you thrown on a guide trip? You know, in the last 2 hours of the day, you saved the trip.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and I throw something in too. If you're watching this and you're new to crappie fishing, and you say, "Hey, I'm gonna hire a guide," okay, which is a great tool, a excellent tool. You can learn more in 6 to 8 hours than you can watching hours and hours. I mean, it's just a one-on-one. But I'm bringing that up to bring this example up. You know, if that guy said, "Hey, let's start at 10 and fish from 10 to dark, or let's 10 to 4, or whatever," listen to him.
Right.
I had a customer one time in December that wanted to go at daylight, and I said, "Sir, you know, they're not really biting in December till about 2 or 3 o'clock." "Well, I want to go at daylight." Well, automatically that already puts a, you know,
Put you behind the 8 ball right there.
But you're the paying customer. That's what we want to do, or that's what you want to do. So we got out there, and probably 3 hours into the trip, we'd caught 4 fish. And he said, "Man, I thought you'd been catching some fish." I said, "I have, but it's been in the afternoon." "Well, I didn't want to do that. You know, you ought to be able. You ought to be able to catch them. You know." Okay, I do this all the time. You know, but anyway, I had just got done doing a deal with an in fisherman. Now, this was back in the day when you had the my mind's kind of gone right now. The camera with the fish on it, you could drop it down and see it. You know, Aquaview.
Aquaview, that's right.
Anyway, so I had one in the truck, so I went and got it, brought it out there, and I dropped it. And I said, "You start counting them fish on stake beds we had put out." And I could see, well, why won't they bite? I said, "They will this afternoon." You know, and I got so, I mean, there's very, very few times that I get aggravated with a customer. But I was so ticked because I'm thinking, you know, we did what you wanted to do instead of what you're
you
getting
just
hired to
listened
do.
to.
Right.
So anyway, he was amazed those fish were there. We had been over them for 2 hours, you know. Well, amazingly, at 1:30, from 1:30 to 2:30, we caught 42 crappie. You know, and we got back to the boat ramp. Of course, he apologized, and I told him, I said, "You know, for future reference, listen to your guide.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He knows."
That's
You
right.
know, I tell everybody, and it kind of, my wife don't like it. I said, "I'm not taking you out there to babysit you and take you for a boat ride. I want to fill that live well up."
Sure.
So, you know, that's a tool that 3 of us do here that, you know, a one day with a guide can save you a lot of heartache.
It will. And, you know, even the same token, during the summertime where I fish, and it might be 95 degrees that day, and I know it's different on the Core Lakes. I don't like starting till after 8 o'clock in the morning. And everybody asks, they're like, "Man, it's going to be super hot today. Don't we need to start at daybreak?" And it's sun at that time's coming up. I don't know. I don't even know because I don't get up there early. 6:30, 6 o'clock, 5:30, whatever it might be. And I'm like, "No, we're not going to start that after 8 in the morning." And they're like, "Man, it's going to be so hot. I'd rather go fish early in the morning." And I'm like, "We can go fishing early in the morning, but we're not going to go catch it." Mm-hmm. And our fish, what was the pattern really is, and it's a summertime stable pattern, is daybreak, overnight, those fish are out scattered around, and as the sun comes up, they pull onto structure. They pull onto brush piles. Beforehand, we might catch a fish here and there, but they're very scattered at that point. But as the sun comes up and gets higher, those fish, they'll get to wherever they're going to be for the rest of the day, and it's going to be on some type of structure. And especially that first 4 hours after they get there, they're hungry and they're going to bite good. Some of my best trips are really from about 10 o'clock to about 2 o'clock.
But it's your pattern.
That's
right.
the pattern.
That's the pattern. And I think we miss that a lot of times, especially, I mean, even when we're talking to people, I think we don't bring that up enough as a pattern.
I agree.
You
Yeah.
know, Tim's got a different pattern where he's at. You
Yeah.
do. I do. And I think that's one of the things, too, you know, when you're at a seminar or something like that, you know, if you're new to this, ask that question. What's the
Right.
difference? You know, there's a big difference in sitting in a hole and a pattern.
Sure.
So I think that's a big challenge. If you find the pattern, then guess what? You've hit a home run.
That's right. Well, just like Brad said, you know, his, you know, on the core lakes in the summertime, mine's that first hour of daylight is usually the best hour.
Right.
You know, and
Our
that's
first
where I get
4
up.
hours, you know,
Yeah.
we say, hey, we want to be there at daylight, first 4 hours,
Right.
and it's, you know, it's normally correct.
That's right.
So,
You know, I get a leg up on a lot of guys because, you know, I'm putting in the dark, you know, going out in the dark and,
Yeah,
you know,
not
and,
me.
and I've got 10 or 15 fish before,
like your pattern.
everybody else has ever got out there.
Yeah.
You know,
And I mean, that's gospel. I mean, literally, in summertime, I know I'm going to get to kind of take my time, get to the boat ramp. Springtime, I try to get there early now. Summertime, I can take my time, get to the boat ramp, 8 o'clock. You know, I really feel like about 9 o'clock is really what I want to be hardcore after. So 8 o'clock gives me plenty of time to get everywhere I'm going to fish at that day. And but it trips a lot of people out. But I think, you know, you hit on it there as well, is the biggest mistake people do is not thinking about patterns.
right.
They're just thinking, all right, I know fish go to structure in the summertime. I just need to go. Well, certain times of the day, even on a pattern, is better than the others. For me, it's really, like I said, that 9 to about 2 o'clock time frame is really when they're gorging and they're hungry, and it might be 95 degrees outside.
Yeah.
It's going to be hot.
Yeah.
But the fishing's hot.
That's right.
And typically for me, I don't mind fishing until about that 1:30, 2 o'clock when it gets scalding hot. By then, either we're going to have them or we're not.
Yeah.
You know?
And you know, people ask me that, and I know they do. Tim, well, when's the hot time? You know, when do you
when's the
think
best
we're going to
time?
do the best?
Yeah, when's the best time?
You know, and I always say if we don't have them the first 4 hours, I run 6 hour trips. If we don't have them the first 4 hours, we're probably not going to get them.
Right.
Yeah.
But if we get them the first 4 hours, the next 2 is we're getting some lucky,
Right.
you know,
We're
just
on
bonus
cruise control at that
bonus.
point.
So that's all good stuff there.
I think my mind, and like I said, is even when you get in a boat with somebody, don't make the mistake of losing confidence. Not having confidence is a big mistake people have when they go in the water, and that, all right, I'm just not going to catch them today.
Exactly.
And it makes and breaks guides for a living, for sure.
Yeah.
But also, you think about how much money you got invested in your equipment.
Oh, yeah.
You guys that fish twice a month or whatever it is, you've got a lot of money invested in equipment. So if you go out there and all of a sudden that you're not catching them, just don't give up and go to the boat ramp.
No, 100%.
That's the biggest mistake to me for people is they give up. They just load the boat up and go home.
I agree with you 100%. You know, you see a lot of guys go out and they buy a new boat, they get all the tackle. I think people don't realize how much we have invested in our gear, and
the time.
100%.
Yeah.
And you know, because when they get in the truck to go home, okay, we still got another hour and a half.
Right.
You know, time we get home. But anyway, it's a. I see so many guys at the boat ramp go, I'm in a slum. I just can't catch them, you know. Well, you know what? Go try to find somebody that's a little better fisherman than you.
That's right.
A lot of men don't, they won't admit to this, but I fish with people that's better than me.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly.
And I hate them. I'll just tell you, I can't stand them. I hate when they call me. I hate when I see the pictures. But you know what? I know they're good fishermen. You know, so if you're struggling, try to find somebody that'll
right.
take you. It's a little bit better fisherman. You know, you're in the back of your mind, you're going to go, man, he got me today.
Yeah, but it's going to make you better.
But I learned something.
That's right.
You know,
A lot of times people make the mistake just not asking other fishermen even on the water.
Sure.
100%.
And I don't, as far as me on the lake, people know that I guide around the house, and they think that, you know, I don't like people coming barging up on me. Don't get me wrong, I don't care for that. That's just not very boat etiquette correctly in my mind. But if you see me somewhere and you're struggling and you need some help, ask me.
Yeah.
Text me.
I'm going to tell you.
Message me.
I'm going to help you any way I can.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to help you. Somebody help me to get started.
That's right. Yes.
Somebody help me to get to where the level I am and continue to hopefully get one day. But I believe in helping people. So if you see some of us guys, and there's hundreds of other crappie fishermen that are willing and able to help you out, but just ask other fishermen. You get back to the boat ramp, you've had a hard day, you see another guy over there loading up, go over there and talk to him. One thing, you might gain a friendship of a lifetime.
Sure.
100%.
It's happened to me so many times that these guys I know around the lake, it's just by meeting them at the boat ramp. But if you're at the boat ramp and you had a bad day, go talk to other fishermen.
Yeah. Well, and it might be that day that you didn't talk to somebody that you were broke down on the water.
Right.
That guy went past you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Brad there, he didn't give me the time of day the other day.
Right.
I might stop and help him.
That's exactly
That's
right.
right. Karma.
So, you know, it's good. It's good as a guide. It's good to show your customers, hey, I want to try to help everybody.
That's right.
I'm here to help the sport. You know,
Exactly.
we see this out here. You know, Tim's wearing ACC and I'm wearing B&M. Hey, we're sitting at the same table talking to you.
Absolutely.
And you don't see that. I witnessed it yesterday. I had a guy come up and I was telling Tim, a guy walked up and he said, hey, where's the ACC rods?
Right.
And he looked down and he said, oh, man, I'm sorry, you're a
Okay,
B&M
that's
guy.
good.
I said, look, it's okay.
Yeah.
Let's go right down here. You know, it's kind of like football. Everybody's got a team, but we all like watching each other's team.
That's
You
right.
know, we got a team that we pull for, but that's what I've tried to teach my kids. You know, help everybody.
Help everybody.
You know,
That's it.
it's the world we're living in. We need more. Hey, I take
Can't get
5
enough
minutes
of
to
it.
walk over to Tim's boat and just say, hey, man, you need anything?
That's
You
right.
know, so that's my high horse there, I guess.
Well, I mean, it's true,
know?
and it happens all the time, definitely with all of us. And I'm sure you guys got some helpful tips today. I know this is my passion. I know that's both of you guys' passion as well. I know Brad was on a podcast probably it was the very first year I believe we did.
It was.
And at the old Grizzly store, matter of fact.
It was. We didn't have a nice room like
We
this
did
right
not.
here. We was in a hole somewhere.
In cold room.
Oh, very cold.
It was very cold. I remember probably we were just about blue during that podcast because it was cold in the back and very cramped. And we made it work, though, so I appreciate you being even one of the OGs of the Crappie Connection guest here.
You know, it was so funny when you told me and you got the name, and I meant to find it, but when I started my guide service, it was called the Crappie Connection Guide Service. And the tourism actually printed it out, you know, and I thought that was pretty cool when you come up with that name. I'll need a little money off that if you don't mind. But, you know, it's just neat that you can actually sit down and do this, the equipment that you have, the time you've put into it, and well, we're not going to talk about who's behind the scenes.
Mr. Hunter there.
But, you know, this is really, really cool. You know, this is that new age stuff that me
Right.
and Tim didn't see 30 years ago.
Right. Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Well, and it's a great platform to get to the everyday guy that doesn't.
Well, and what you're doing, like having two guys that got two different sponsors, and you know, who cares when you're behind this table?
Right,
We're
right.
trying to get out enough information that, you know, it'll help. You know, if this podcast, if it's seen 20,000 times and it helps one person,
That's right.
It's worth
you know
it.
what? It's worth it.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So,
Well, it couldn't do it without guys like you, both you guys. Thank you from my side of things. I appreciate both of you. Make sure you hit that follow, subscribe, turn your notifications on. We've got so many good stuff coming out this spring you don't want to miss. Until next time, you got Brad Chappell here.
Brad Whitehead.
Tim Howell.
Holla.
About a mile from Big Muddy River, a place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel